Welcome to Still Pretty, a Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast from Chipperish Media. I'm 5x5 story expert Lani Diane Rich.
And I'm film scholar and bestest new little sister Noelle LaCroix, and we're here today to talk about Faith, Hope, and Trick, the third episode of Season 3.
Woo! Faith, Hope, and Trick aired on October 13th, 1998, and was written by David Greenwalt and directed by James A. Contner.
If you're new to Still Pretty, welcome, but hold on to your spoiler sensitivity because we are likely to talk about anything that happens in the entire run of all of Buffy. We are fully spoiled, so if you're spoiler sensitive, maybe binge the entire show and then come on back. We'll be here when you're done. Obviously, something in your bottle needs uncorking, so let's go on patrol. In Faith, Hope, and Trick, Buffy isn't allowed on campus until she and her mother meet with Principal Snyder to get her back into school. So the Scoobies step off campus to meet her for a picnic. Walking nearby is Scott Hope, who likes Buffy and is cute. But Buffy's plans for her new life include more than just dating.
All right, yes, date and shop and hang out and go to school and save the world from unspeakable demons. You know, I want to do girly stuff.
Out in the dark Sunnydale night, two vampires sit in the back of a limo and talk about their plans for Sunnydale. Cloven-hoofed Kakistos wants only to kill the Slayer, but Trick is into having a bit more fun while hanging out in a town with a death rate like Sunnydale. Buffy dreams about Angel hating her for killing him, which is rough, but then she and Joyce go in to see Principal Snyder, who is forced to allow Buffy back into school, and there's some satisfaction in that. At school, Giles wants to perform a binding spell to prevent Akatla from returning, and needs more details on killing Angel from Buffy.
And Angel?
Big fight. Angel got the pointy end of the sword. Akatla sucked him into hell instead of the world. That's about it.
At the Bronze, Buffy and the gang are hanging out when Scott Hope asks Buffy to dance, and Buffy's clearly not ready, or that interested. Good on you, Buffy. Follow that instinct. On the dance floor, a goth-esque girl is dancing with a vampire from the 70s, and when she leaves with him, Buffy follows with the gang, ready to slay. But it turns out, she doesn't need Buffy's help.
I got it. You're Buffy, right? Oh, I'm Faith.
I'm going to go on a limb and say there's a new Slayer in town.
As everyone is charmed by Faith, including Scott Hope, Buffy isn't that impressed. Meanwhile, Trick is planning a global takeover via that sweet T3 internet connection, but Kakistos is focused on killing the Slayer. Trick tells him there's more than one in town, and Kakistos says he'll kill them all. Back at Buffy's, as Joyce is getting to know Faith, she has some mom thoughts about what a second Slayer in town could mean for Buffy. But when she finds out that Faith is only there because Buffy died that one time, it comes as a bit of a shock.
Oh, I hate this. I hate your life.
Mom,
I know you didn't choose this. I know it chose you. I have tried to march in the Slayer Pride Parade, but I don't want you to die.
Buffy and Faith go out patrolling, and the tension rises between them. But just as they're about to fight each other, Kakistos' vamps attack. Faith's trauma comes out as she gets into beating up one vampire and leaves Buffy to almost get killed by the rest of them. When Buffy talks to Giles about it, she mentions the name, and Giles says Kakistos is one of the worst vampires ever. Buffy can't get over the timing.
now, this guy shows up 2 days ago, right? Right around the same time my bestest new little sister makes the scene.
I think he and Faith are connected.
Giles, there are two things that I don't believe in. Coincidence and leprechauns.
As Buffy's rushing out to talk to Faith, Scott Hope stops her in the hallway and asks her out in the worst way possible, but which is maybe supposed to be charming or whatever. But she decides to give him a chance, and then in one of those grand coincidences that Buffy does not believe in, he gives her a Claddagh ring. Because he's a big stupid weirdo. Buffy says she can't do this, which is the correct response, and then Giles comes down the hallway to give Buffy some news.
Did you reach the retreat?
Yes, I did.
What did our watcher say?
Her watcher's dead.
Buffy goes to Faith's crappy motel to confront her about Kakistos and her watcher being dead. When Faith hears Kakistos' name, she starts packing. Just as she's about to leave, Kakistos shows up with his goons and Faith freaks out. They run into an abandoned warehouse to hide, and Faith tells Buffy that she watched Kakistos kill her watcher, and she got scared and ran. But before they can get a plan together to take down Kakistos, they realize they're in his lair as all the vamps come out swinging. But when Buffy starts to get the best of Kakistos, Trick sees the writing on the wall.
If we don't do something, the master could get killed. Well, what birds are with him?
As Kakistos is about to kill Buffy, Faith grabs a splintered beam and takes out Kakistos. The next day at school, Giles tells Buffy and Willow that the council has approved Faith staying in Sunnydale under Giles' supervision. And then Buffy tells them what happened with Angel, that Willow's spell worked, that she killed Angel, not Angelus. Buffy leaves, and Willow talks to Giles.
I know you don't like me playing with mystical forces, but I can really help with this binding spell.
There is no spell.
Buffy finds Scott Hope and tells him she'd still like to go to the film festival with him if he's into it, and they decide to go that night. She says that she has one thing to do first, and then she'll be free. She goes to the mansion and leaves her Claddagh ring on the floor, saying goodbye to Angel. She leaves. Later, the mansion starts to shake, and then Angel appears, naked and trembling, on the floor.
All right, Noelle. So here we are. Now, the third episode of every season is usually when things really get cooking. And that is absolutely true of season 3, which honestly is one of the best seasons of Buffy. I am so excited. So overall, what did you think about Faith, Hope, and Trick?
My notes for Faith, Hope, and Trick are really just, she's here, she's here, she's here, she's here, she's here. So excited. I'm so excited. Great. I am so excited to get to talk about Faith. But before we get into all of that wonderfulness, I realized that I haven't talked really at all about those angel dreams that Buffy has throughout the beginning of season 3. So I'm gonna take a look at those for a minute. Before we get into the rest of the episode. So there's just a ton going on with these dreams. So Faith, Hope, and Trick gives us this 3-beat with Buffy's dreams about Angel. And I think that we get the best and strongest one here, which is really, really satisfying. But Buffy has had a dream about Angel every episode this season so far. And in Anne, the dream was a bit of a fake out for the audience. With Buffy on the beach. I mean, I guess it's possible that Buffy could be on some astral beach with Angel in a perfect romance novel composition. Sure. It's like this sweet romantic kind of scene until he whispers, "Even if you kill me."
Right.
And she wakes up on Skid Row and we have sirens. So we have this really stark contrast between what's going on, what's going on in her mind, what the sort of scenery is. And what her reality is. And then in Dead Man's Party, Buffy dreams of walking through the empty high school and meeting Angel in the courtyard, and it's daylight.
Yeah.
And she asks him if she's dreaming, and he says, "I'm the wrong person to ask."
Yeah.
And she tells him that she's afraid, and he says, "You should be." And it's really weird and ominous, and I feel like it doesn't fit super well with the rest of the episode.
Yeah, but it does feel a little weird. It feels like it's an excuse to have David Boreanaz in the opening credits, so that so that he's still there and we don't forget Angel. Like that was going to happen.
Yeah, we really need Angel to be here all along.
Yeah.
So we have to put him in this dream. But I like that as kind of a follow up to the dream in Anne, where they're clearly in this fantasy space.
Yeah,
and now we've moved to a more reality based space. This is her actual high school, and of course no one is there. But it's a little bit more reality based. And then the Faith, Hope, and Trick Angel dream sequence is just the best. It's my favorite of the 3 of them. We get that great. I love that Buffy has an establishing shot in her dream.
Right.
Because we see the outside of the bronze. I'm like, oh, cool. And it almost for half a second, you think maybe we're actually not.
Right.
You know,
Yes.
like we're
exactly.
actually in
Did
the
I
Bronx.
miss an episode and Angel came back?
Yeah.
Or what happened?
I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, what? But of course, Angel is wearing a white shirt, which
Yes.
would never happen.
Which
like,
he never
this is how we know
does.
it's a dream.
He does not wear light colors. Yeah.
He does not. He does not. And of course, it's absolutely necessary for this
Right.
wonderful moment, this effect where he starts to bleed
Yeah.
from the inside out. So good. So good. It's just wonderful. And the way he squeezes the Claddagh ring until his hand bleeds, and we see that he's wearing his ring, and it's so vivid and affecting, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It really drives home Buffy's experience of having done this horrible, what she perceives to be unforgivable thing to him. And that's really how she sees it. She really is making, I don't want to say she's making his death all about her. I don't mean it that way. I mean that she is really grappling, in her unconscious with having done this horrible thing to this person that she loves. And the fear really comes through. She's afraid that he's angry with her.
Right.
And that he could never forgive her for what she's done. She keeps trying to explain that she had to do this.
Yeah.
And he's so, he's so hostile, especially in the dream that we get here. And then we have the unfortunate Angel zombie face. And I just don't, I'm like,
right. And then,
he
messes up the line too, which always drives me crazy. Because he says go to hell, and then you see him with the zombie face and he's got this horrible grimace on, and then he says, I did, right? But it's supposed to be I did, right? That's how it's supposed to. Every time I see him, I'm like, Moriana, could you have not done one more take? Yeah.
Well, unless he's quoting her saying go to hell to him. Did she ever say that to him?
She might have.
She might have at some point.
But even so, like, it just, I don't know, it just seems so weird. And I feel like every time that line comes, and it's a petty little thing, but like, I'm always like,
no, but it's so distracting because it pulls you out.
Right.
Like a weird line reading or a weird, weird line or a weird performance will absolutely pull you out of the story. And then you're like, wait.
Yeah, and it's just not right. But I mean, Buffy's dreams, like, here's the thing. Like, everybody knows how I feel about dream sequences. Generally, I find them to be self-indulgent and pretentious. And when we get to the end of season 4 with Restless, oh my God, that's going to be an interesting discussion. Everybody don't at me. I know you love Restless. I hate it. It's fine. It's fine. I don't need to love it for it to be just everything you love about it. It's fine. But the dream sequences in Buffy generally do serve a narrative purpose. And so I think that they hold their own, and in this particular instance, I actually think that the dream sequences are okay for a couple of reasons. When we do have this 3-beat, which of course I always love a 3-beat, right? But the 3-beat doesn't have clarity, because the 3-beat is establish, reconfirm, and then subvert, right? And we kind of have that a little bit. And that, in the opening one, they're together, he's holding her. In the middle one, they're walking together, so they're not actually touching, and he's much more distant from her. And he's also, he's saying you should be afraid, but he's not directly saying like you killed me. Like he's not throwing a guilt trip at her, which is what he does in the other two, And then in the last one, though, I mean, it is absolutely the most effective of them all because she sees him, his face rotting, him going into this like, really like evil place, like go to hell, this kind of thing. And really angry with her. But what we're really processing is her ability to process everything that she went through. And that's the only way that she can do it, because up until this point, of course, she hasn't told anybody yet. Nobody knows that she had to kill Angel and it wasn't Angelus. Like nobody knows exactly what happened to her or what that experience was, And so she has to process this for herself. And these, I think especially in this episode, because this episode is about processing trauma. This is about that final. She's been working her way through this trauma in a lot of ways. We had I Only Have Eyes for You last season, where she was working through her ability to forgive herself for having turned him. This is, of course, before she killed him. So then she has to go through that process all over again. But she's, but in the dream, she's like, you had done these things. Like, I had to kill you. You were going to suck the world into hell. And she's defending herself. And the thing is that she's not defending herself to him. She's defending herself to herself. You know,
Right.
like this is not about her talking to Angel. This is about her talking to herself. And he is, I think at this point, what she sees is her other half, and he's missing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So she's processing all that stuff for herself, but she's processing that through this imagery of him in her dreams. And I think that it works pretty well, you know, as far as the dreams go. They're also not terribly self-indulgent. You know, they're more direct and less like, you know, abstract, which a lot of people like to put in their dream sequences to show how artistic they are. Again, Restless. I'll talk about you when I get there. And so, I mean, having these dreams and helping her process through her trauma, and also keeping us connected with her emotional state with regard to that, because we don't have her, you know, she doesn't have the ability to talk about it. The people around her don't know, you know, what's going on yet. So I think that it works really well. I like the dream sequences, you know, in this circumstance. I think that they're pretty good. They work really well. And it also gives us a chance to spend a little more time with David Boreanaz, because we miss him. We miss Angel.
because you know, otherwise he just gets stabbed in the stomach and then he's gone forever.
I know, but then they play the Close Your Eyes. I mean, her dreams are actually scored. Like, we have the Close Your Eyes theme, which, by the way, every time we get those hints of da, 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 I want to die. It kills me every single time.
Yep.
Yes, it does. It's so sad. It is the saddest song ever written. It is so sad.
I love it when the music works.
Yes.
on someone. I love it.
Oh my
I
God.
love
And that is
it.
one of the most powerful responses. Like there's certain scoring, you know, done like through Bear McCreary, who's working now and doing like Outlander and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and he did Black Sails. He does scoring that's just unbelievable. But like prior to that, this is the only song where I was like that, and the Hulk from the TV show in the 70s, the Hulk sad walking away music.
Oh God.
Just so sad at the end of every episode.
So sad.
I can't make friends, and sad music. But
Oh my
but
God.
this is like iconic. Close Your Eyes, and it brings you right back to that moment when she, you know, kisses him before she stabs him through the heart, and it's so incredibly powerful.
Great use of music
Yeah.
all around on Buffy.
Oh, absolutely. All right, so you want to get into Faith? I know you got a lot of stuff
my
to say.
God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Should
Okay,
I just wind you up like a child's toy and let you go?
okay. No, I mean, I have so many thoughts on
Yes.
Faith, so I'm going to need you to like reel me in because
I don't think anybody wants you to be reeled in. Go for it.
Oh my God. God damn it. Okay.
We're all so excited to be talking about Faith. I mean, this is the Faith
talking about Faith.
episode. This is when she comes in.
Faith
yeah.
is fantastic.
She is.
And right off the bat, like I remembered that I loved Faith. I didn't remember how great
Yeah.
she was
Yeah.
right away. Like right away, she is this wonderful foil for Buffy, and I
Yes.
just love it. I mean, from that first fight with the vampire,
Mm-hmm.
Faith is this fantastic reversal of Buffy. She's looking at Buffy and Co. and
Yeah.
when she's fighting, instead of looking at the vamp. And then she's got that great headbutt.
Yep.
You know, she says, "I'm Faith." And then she headbutts him
Yeah.
backwards. It's fantastic. And then she stakes him with her left hand.
Uh-huh.
And we know Buffy is right-handed. I like the idea that Faith is left-handed. I think she's actually ambidextrous. I think we see that
Yeah.
throughout the show.
Yeah.
And for once, that was not innuendo.
Right.
You know, and we've got Faith wearing jewel tones and black, while Buffy's in a lot of pastels. Buffy wears a lot of light blue, a lot of baby blue.
Yeah.
And that gorgeous ombre pink top that's kind of sheer and flimsy because, of course, Buffy's appearance isn't her armor, but Faith's really is.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, all those she's got all those hard edges and then the arm warmers, which are not quite gauntlets, but kind of.
And even her makeup, you know, her eye
God,
makeup
yeah.
is so dark, and her lipstick
dark
is so dark.
lipstick.
Like, she is, you know, basically this very sharp, edgy contrast in everything. She has as much contrast visually in herself. Her hair is so dark, you know, like all of these things all come together to be Faith, you know, and I love all of that.
I love that Faith and Buffy share a deep down identity-based pain, but Faith takes hers and projects it outward.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
my dead mother hits harder than that. This is me, you undead bastard, as she's
Yeah.
pommeling this vampire. Well, Buffy projects hers inward,
Yep.
which is what we just talked about a little bit with her dreams about Angel. And the way she hides her pain from Giles and her friends. And she's trying so hard to be normal.
Right.
When nothing in her life is normal. But that's always been Buffy's, like, that's the brass ring that she just can't quite reach, is that normal life. I love that Faith is a storyteller.
Yeah.
Buffy is keeping her stories to herself. But Faith is just all out there, you know, with stories aplenty, happy to share them. When Buffy tries to tell the group a story about the three, no one shows any interest because they don't have a point of reference for that. They weren't there for that.
Yeah.
And then the other story that Buffy does have about Oz being a werewolf isn't really a story at all.
Right. It's kind of a long story. I got bit.
Kind of a long
not
story.
that long.
I got
right?
bit.
Right. Well, you know, I mean, Faith is performative. Like, you know, I love this idea of Faith being external and Buffy being internal, you know, and Faith is highly performative, and that comes from her internal place. I mean, that performance in itself is also an armor, you know.
Absolutely.
I mean, she's putting herself, and Buffy is so open and vulnerable and soft on all the places where Faith is hard, you know. And then, you know, we have that moment too, like with Giles, where Giles is like, well, you know, she doesn't have the Watcher, her mother is dead, like she doesn't have the friends and, you know, community that you have. And and she dropped out of school. You know, so she's not, she has nothing but the slaying. Like the slaying is everything. It is her entire identity. Whereas Buffy has to kind of like take all of these identities and find a way to make them all work together, you know, and until recently, even her mother didn't know that she was a slayer, you know? So, so Faith has this real external performative value to her, you know, and Buffy is very internal. And when she tries to project outward, you know, it doesn't work for her because that's not who she is.
Right. Right. The place that I love the contrast between Buffy and Faith the most in this episode, though, is at the dinner table.
Yes.
Joyce is trying so hard, you guys, to be a good mom and like march in the Slayer Pride Parade.
Yeah.
And a side note, I know we'll talk about Joyce in a minute, but I actually really love the Joyce that we get here.
Yes.
Because she's been informed of this whole new world of slayers and vampires, and like slaying is a job, and there are all of these, you know, moving parts. And she's really trying to get a sense of how it all works.
Yeah.
And here's Faith, who seems to love it and is so different in her affect from Buffy. And Joyce is like it. We've talked about the clunkiness of the queer coming out narrative a couple of times, but here's a place where I feel like it really works, because Joyce is like, okay, here is another person who is like my daughter. Let me find out what this is about. I need, you know, a broader picture of what it means to be a slayer.
Yeah, no, I think it's really great. Yeah. And I especially love, too, because, like, there's one point with Joyce, and we'll just go ahead and talk about it now because we're here.
Perfect. Yeah.
But there's one point with Joyce where she says, yeah, Buffy can be so negative, you know? And I'm like, oh, God, shut up. But when we get her in the kitchen, like, when we get that moment where we see, and Joyce is like, I'm here, I want to support you, but this is dangerous. It's not good for you. And she loves it. So while it seems like Joyce is all like, oh, Faith is so wonderful. Faith is so wonderful. Faith is wonderful to Joyce because Faith represents the possibility that this part of Buffy's identity, the slaying, that Faith could do that and Buffy could be safe, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, as a parent, I sympathize with that 1,000,000%. Like, you want your kid to be safe. You want your kid to be happy. And, you know, and here's Faith, and Faith loves it. And you don't like it that much, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, why? You know, but at the same time, like, Buffy's there, like, identifying, you know, she's like, no, I am a slayer. And it's just, well, what do you have to be? You know, I mean, it's that whole thing. And like in this instance, like actually Joyce in this episode, with the exception of that one slam where she's like, Buffy's so negative. Aside from that, I really like Joyce in this episode. And I think that she does really great. And I love that everybody else is entranced with Faith because Faith is entrancing. Like Faith is a powerful, performative person, and she gets your attention. But for Joyce, her love for Faith, like her adoring Faith, isn't about Faith. It's about Buffy, and it's about what she wants for her daughter. And I really kind of like that.
Yeah, I love Christine Sutherland's line reading when she says, I hate this. I hate your life. When Buffy says,
absolutely.
She's like,
she finds out her daughter died.
She died. Yeah. And I love how every time it comes up that Buffy died, it was just for a minute, just not,
just for a few minutes. It was fine.
Just a couple minutes. It was fine. Yeah. No
but
big deal.
I completely sympathize with Joyce in this though. And totally. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that emotional roller coaster that Joyce goes on.
Yeah.
Apart from the mom-splaining of slaying, like what do you know about being a slayer, Joyce?
She's trying. Like, she doesn't understand. But at least here, it's because she wants what's best for Buffy, and she wants Buffy to have a safe, and she doesn't want her daughter out there where she's going to get killed. Nobody's really explained the fact that slayers die all the time.
I don't want you to die.
I don't want you to die.
And that just hits so hard.
Oh, God, yeah.
When she says, I don't want you to die. I'm like, oh, no.
It's heartbreaking.
No, it's so sad. Oh, my God. But it's a really, I don't know. The contrast between Buffy and Faith is so wonderful. And then, of course, we find out, there's this reversal when Faith's trauma comes out to play.
Yeah.
And Buffy walks her through that. Mm-hmm. She tells her, like, you did, Faith is so...
you did the right thing.
Yeah.
When she says to Faith, you did the right thing. Don't die. That's your job. Don't die, And so when she walks Faith through that, and she also walks herself through it, because earlier in the episode in that dream with Angel, she's defending herself. You were going to suck the world into hell. I had to kill you. I didn't have a choice. I didn't want to, And so later, when she's saying that to Faith, she's also saying that to herself. And that's what allows her to, to kind of release all of that and accept that she did the right thing. She did what she had to do, and it's over. Angel is gone, and that's it. So one of the things too that I love about this whole thing with Faith is that, they first see her, she's with this 1970s vampire, which of course reflects on the opening episode, the pilot episode, where she saw Willow with a vampire whose outfit was carbon dated, right?
Yes.
And she goes out, and of course, like the whole thing is like to rescue Willow from the vampire, and she goes out, and we do the same thing again. So we're like replaying that, and that's one of the things. Like when you brought up like Faith as a foil for Buffy, like we're having Faith kind of reflect and reframe other things that we've done up until now, and kind of bring it into this new context, which is one of the things. Like, I love everything about Faith. I love Eliza Dushku. I love the performance. I love the writing. I love the way the character is built. But I also love that here we are in season 3, and instead of kind of like going back and repeating the same thing, we're putting ourselves into a new context. We've had 2 Slayers before, but we had Kendra, and Kendra was here for an episode and then gone, and then of course came in to die.
Yes.
So we've had our Kendra discussion. We'll let that sit where it is. But here we have Faith, who is actually, if there are 2 Slayers, first of all, there's always only been one. There's one chosen one Slayer, one girl in all the world has been the basic premise. So here we are messing with that premise, and we're having 2, and what happens when we do that? And I love the way that like almost every season of Buffy pretty much does that. It takes the, what we've done before and then reframes it and gives us something new to kind of explore within that world, which I really, really love. So then we get this surprise, that Faith is also a Slayer, and she knows about Buffy. Like, this is the thing. Kendra knows everything. Faith knows everything. Why are they not telling Giles this stuff? Why are they not communicating things to Giles? Why did Giles not know that there was another Slayer out there? Why did Giles not know that her Watcher was killed? Why did Giles not get invited to the Cotswolds? What the hell is going on? We have one watcher who has the Slayer, right? And I mean, then they knew about Faith. They assigned a watcher to her. The watcher was working with her. The watcher told her about Buffy. What is going on? Why is Giles left in the dark? He's the most important watcher they've got.
It makes no sense, and the only explanation that I have is that Giles doesn't know how email works.
Maybe they've been emailing him all along.
And he's just like, well, no.
He's like, this dread machine. But I mean, they should know Giles well enough to know that they can still write a letter. Right. I mean, they still have letters and stamps in England, do they not? Like, it all just doesn't, like, it doesn't make any sense that Giles does not know anything about it. But, I also really love, too, that there they are, Faith is kicking ass, and Oz is the one to be like, looks like there's a new Slayer in town. Like, I love the fact that Oz is the one who, like, puts everything together and sees everything. I love the moment where he's like, so, how do you feel about werewolves?
Yes.
And she's like, well, if you don't bite me or hump my leg, I guess we're 5 by 5. And of course, we get our first 5 by 5, which is very fun, for Faith.
Yes.
Because that becomes kind of like her signature line, But I love when she's, doing her performative thing at the Bronze, and she's like, isn't it crazy how slaying just always makes you hungry and horny? And they all look at Buffy. And she's like, sometimes I crave a non-fat yogurt afterward. It is such a great contrast for the two of them.
I'm completely calling bullshit on that.
Yes.
No one has ever craved a non-fat yogurt in the history of ever. That's not how cravings work. Go ahead and at me.
Oh my God, it's so funny.
What I love about that line, what I love about that line and what I love about that whole scene is, Faith is perched up like on the arm of a chair somewhere, and Buffy's kind of like slumped down in this with a sort of hangdog look on her face. And what I love is that when Faith says that and everybody's head whips around to Buffy, Buffy does and says exactly what you would do if you were just completely outed in front of your friends. Like, we know that Faith is telling us the truth.
Right.
And that Buffy has it's never come up. Buffy has never disclosed this piece of information about Slayerdom. But what's interesting is that when we do see Buffy in sexual situations throughout the run of the show, it often happens after there's some danger. Not slaying necessarily, but there's almost always
some violence involved.
Yeah, there's violence
aside
beforehand.
from Parker in season 4, which is just an aberration in every possible way. We'll talk about that when we get season 4. Right now we're in season 3, which is so wonderful, and we love it.
Season 3 is wonderful, and let's just stay in season 3 forever.
Let's just stay in season 3 for a while. Except for, of course, now I'm about to take us into the thing about this episode that is freaking terrible.
Oh my God.
Which is Scott Goddamn Hope. Okay, here's the thing, and I'm just going to go off for a minute because this happens in every show. And I've named this archetype the floppy-haired douchebag, right? Not always floppy-haired, sometimes floppy-haired, but always, if not floppy-haired, literally, he's floppy-haired in his soul. Like, this is the guy who shows up and we're supposed to think he's just so great, and he's so funny and he's so charming and he's so cute and all this stuff. And we have it all over the Gilmore Girls and they're terrible men. And we have it here, and it happens all the time in TV shows. This floppy haired douchebag archetype shows up and it's just like, oh, I want to go to the Buster Keaton festival. And he knows who Buster Keaton is, and who gives a fuck? There's nothing. That's not how you build a relationship. That's not how, people, I don't know. So anyway, Scott Hope is the worst. He's got this outwardly sweet, cute guy thing, and then he's not a character. He's the floppy-haired douchebag, the guy that, comes in and is supposed to be all cute, and he's there for 2 or 3 episodes, and he's the worst, Or he's Dean on Gilmore Girls, or whatever, or Logan on Gilmore Girls, or basically every man that has ever kissed a Gilmore Girl. So we have this whole, he's so, and what is it Willow says? This guy is charm. He is not charm.
He's not. He's like a cardboard cutout of a guy.
Yeah. The cute boy,
it's so weird because he's totally nice, but also just completely boring.
Yeah.
How is he's
No, it's terrible. And we get a 3 beat with him. Which is all, set up, reinforce, and then reinforce again that he's the worst. Like, it's just, we don't even subvert, But we get this, he asked her to dance, and then she can't dance with him because she's got to go out after Faith. Then we have this horrible, oh my God, thing in the hallway. It's terrible.
Gross.
Okay, I gotta...
I know, be somewhere else, right? Think of this as my last-ditch effort. I realize that one more is going to qualify as stalking. I've given a lot of thought. Some might say too much thought to how I might be a part of your life. It begins with conversation. We all know this. Maybe over a cup of coffee. Or maybe at the Buster Keaton Festival playing on State Street all this weekend.
So that's terrible. He's doing this whole, I've given it a lot of thought. It starts with conversation. Like, shut up.
Did he practice this in front of his mirror this morning?
I think he did. And already he has a Claddagh ring for her. First of all, no, you don't buy a girl a ring of any sort unless you've been together for a while, and that is a thing that you are at in the relationship. It's a place that you're at in the relationship. But rings, any gift is weird before you've gone on your first date. But the idea of buying her a Claddagh ring, which of course is an Irish wedding ring. I mean, it has a very strong romantic context. We already saw what happened when Angel gave Buffy the Claddagh, which, by the way, he'd earned the right to give her a Claddagh at that point,
Also, they had to get married so they could have sex because otherwise you're a... Yeah.
But there is that too.
Anyway.
So he gives her this Claddagh. And of course, we're using it in the fiction as a trigger for her because that's, of course, the ring that Angel gave her. And she sees it and she drops it and she says, I can't do this. And she backs off. Now, that is regardless of whether the Claddagh had been a thing or whether he'd given her anything in that little box from the jewelry store. She should drop it and say, I can't do this. You're too weird. Bye. That's absolutely the correct response to that. But, we have that whole thing. And then she's like, I can't do this. And she starts crying and she's upset. Then he picks up the box and leaves. And at that point, a normal show would realize they've made a terrible, terrible mistake and just let it die and make him go away and never come back. So then we have Giles come out and he, tells her that Faith's Watcher's dead and we move into that. But then our last beat with Scott Hope is where Buffy has unloaded her experience onto Willow and Giles, has told them what really happened. Then she's free from the trauma. She goes out into the hallway and stalks him, right? And waits outside his class. He comes out and she gives him this whole thing about, I'd like to go to the festival with you. And then he's like, well, no, I have to think about it. And then he does that 2-second turnaround. I thought about it. Let's go. Also stupid, also highly performative, also incredibly floppy-haired douchebag. That's classic floppy-haired douchebag material. And then they're going to go and now they're dating or whatever for Buster Keaton. And also, why is it Buster Keaton? Why is that a charming thing? It should be something that we know Buffy would like. If we're going to set up these two characters and force them together in one episode of knowing this guy, there should be something that they connect on or that he gets about her that makes him seem like he might possibly be a good guy for her. But this whole Buster Keaton thing, has she ever mentioned Buster Keaton? Does she like
Never,
Buster Keaton? Did she have to go and look up on the internet who the fuck Buster Keaton was after he asked her out the first time? Yeah, maybe. Fair enough, right?
Yeah. I mean...
Oh God, yeah.
Because guys who like black and white movies are deep, Lani.
Yes. No, that's right. It's our shortcut. Our shortcut to depth and, character and whatever. Yeah.
Our shortcut to depth is anything that was popular before you were born.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
that's really...
And that's another thing too. The pop culture references that come, because the pop culture references are always belonging to the writer, who is usually in a high school show about 15 years older than any of the high school kids. And so the references that high school kids regularly have, meanwhile, whatever actually was popular at that time, nobody's talking about, I don't know, fucking NSYNC or whatever. Nobody's talking about Justin Timberlake. But here we are referencing Buster Keaton, whatever,
Yeah. Although,
yes.
To be fair, I if they had made Scott Hope a little bit nerdier, because full
if that had been
disclosure,
consistent with his character all along, absolutely.
Full disclosure, I was the nerdy kid who grew up watching Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin. Mm-hmm. So that would have been a reference for me in high school.
Oh, sure. Yeah, but... I mean, and that's fine. Like, I was into Motown. I was listening to 60s music. I knew the Temptations when I was in high school, you know?
Yes!
So, I mean, like, yeah. And I knew all the 1930s romantic comedies. I was into Cary Grant. Like, I get that. But that, like, it has to be part of a whole character that is that thing. As opposed to all of the kids knowing this stuff.
Right.
You know?
Well, and also, I mean, we've said it already, but Scott Hope, there's no character there. There's no there. He's just a boy who likes Buffy.
No, we're just like slapping. We took a cardboard cutout and we slapped some character, you know, qualities on him. And that's it. None of it's consistent. None of it makes any sense. And there's no reason why Buffy would be necessarily into that guy, you know. But whatever, you know, but he's cute and it's high school and whatever. Like, cute boys count for a lot in high school and, you know, whatever. That's fine. But overall, he's the overly performative, you know, it starts with conversation. Here's your clattering. Oh, I have to think about it. Yes, let's go. All of that stuff is terrible. And it's a little bit like, it's not entirely, he's like Owen 2.0, right? Owen was our first floppy haired douchebag, right? You know, like, I read Emily Dickinson and I'm into death. Like, no. You know, like, it's just whatever. And Owen actually, though, was a little bit more consistently at least characterized than Scott Hope. But Scott Hope is the literal worst, and I'm so tired of all these floppy-haired douchebags, and please stop writing floppy-haired douchebags, people. Although, of course, I realize I'm saying this to people who were writing it 20 years ago, whatever. But one of the things in this episode, though, that is fantastic and that I love and will love forever is the introduction of Mr. Trick.
Mr. Trick!
Oh, my God. I love this guy. And, I mean, this intro is fantastic.
Sunnydale. Town's got quaint. Then the people, you call me sir. Don't you just miss that? I mean, admittedly, it's not a haven for the brothers, you know, strictly the Caucasian persuasion here in the Dale. But, you know, you just gotta stand up and salute that death rate. I ran a statistical analysis, and hello, darkness.
So I love Mr. Trick, full stop. I love this introduction of a character. I love that he calls out the whiteness in Sunnydale.
Yes,
but that's all he does.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me, you know, we talk about race on this show a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that Buffy, the show, talks about race by not talking about it. Like, we let Mr. Trick have this line.
Yeah.
But that's kind of all we do.
And then,
I think that's really telling.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we've acknowledged it, you know, because they've gotten letters clearly by this point. Why is everybody white except for Kendra, who dies, right?
Right.
You know, and so, you know, we've got the acknowledgement of it, and here we have a character, like an actually written, interesting character who I love, and he is the polar opposite of Scott Hope in every way. He's an actual character. He actually has like things that he's interested in. He's excited. I love his enthusiasm for everything. Like, I love him. I love him where he's like, well, now I'm hungry, and he pulls the guy out of the drive-thru.
I
like,
love his relationship to fast food.
I
love
that
we get fast food, but then we also get pizza delivery, and of course it's not the pizza that they're eating, it's the pizza guy.
It's fast food. I know.
So good.
Which I love. Like, he is using what is available in the world to his benefit, and I like it. And I have to say, and I know this is just me, I love that he loves technology. I love that he comes in. If I was a vampire at that time, I would have made that exact same speech. We got ourselves some fiber optics in this town. We're going to jack into a T3, 250 or 2,500 megs per second. I was like, I love him so much, talking about the height of technology at the time.
He's a vampire with a plan.
He's a vampire with a plan. He's hanging out with Kakistos. And of course, like, you know, having a character of color be a, you know, secondhand guy to like the bad guy that we're dealing with, you know, fine, whatever. But I mean, then at the end, we get that lovely moment from him where he's just like, wow, he's going to get killed. Oh, well, prayers are with him, you know, and he's just like, I am not at all signed up to die for anybody. Like, you know, this is like the modern vampire. Knows better.
He's the modern vampire.
And then we drop the stupid cultish vampire nonsense, like, which is a bit much. So I love that he kind of brings in the way that Faith kind of reframes, the Slayer lore and the world of the Slayer and what that can be. He comes in and he kind of reframes the way that vampires can be, which is what Spike did last season. So he is definitely, he's got a very Spike energy. He's very fun. He's very smart. He's out for himself, and I think that it's great.
Yes.
It's so fantastic. And since we don't have Spike, very much, we get him for one episode this season. Since we've lost Spike, having Trick come in is kind of nice. It makes me miss Spike a lot less.
Yeah, he reminds me of Spike a lot.
Yes.
Especially his line about, the master could get killed and then they leave. Spike in Becoming Part 2, he's going to kill her. And then he shrugs and walks away.
Yes.
It's just like,
yes. It's
like,
the same
all
thing.
right.
Which is how the vampires should be. The idea that vampires are willing to light themselves on fire just to send a message to Buffy in the middle of class. Like, no. That's not how vampires work.
That's not how vampires work. And it's not how vampires work, generally speaking, in vampire stories. Vampires are, we get this idea from Buffy that vampires are kind of stuck in the time when they were turned. But of course, we don't see that. Yeah. We see it when it's convenient. We get our 70s vampires.
Yeah.
But in general, vampires have access to whatever the newest technology is.
Yeah.
And it's honestly, I think it's part of what makes them scary is because they're around forever. They get to see things change and they get to update with the time. So I love Mr. Trick and Spike being the modern vampire.
Being that kind of vampire. Yeah, because those vampires are cool and those vampires are scary. You cannot predict them as well as you can the cult members who will follow whoever their leader is, which is stupid, So all of it, I don't know, I find to be really, really good. I like the fact that we have a very interesting, well-written character of color, and that's really nice. But of course, like Buffy and the way that Buffy deals with race is very much this kind of like, yeah, we understand that this is how it is, but this is how it is. And they don't really go to challenge those ideas very much. We just accept everybody's white here, and now Trick is going to be dealing with that as well. And we don't, I think, really like textually mention race again with Trick, do we? I'm not sure that we do. We might.
I don't
and
think
everybody out
Maybe.
there who remembers that happening is going to like yell at the thing, because I always get yelled at. They're like, no, you forgot this. I know I forget stuff. It happens. So there's a lot of Buffy out there. But I mean, but still we've got this like space for our characters of color, right? They can be entertaining. They can be second in command to white people. They don't really get their own stories. They don't really get their own thing going on. Because as much like we had Spike, and Spike was great, but Spike had Drusilla. Spike had that whole, a conflict with Angelus.
Yeah.
Spike was, and here, with Trick, we let him into that space a little bit, but not a lot. And I mean, the thing is, like, overall, and again, like, I'm not saying that the writers of Buffy are like horribly racist and this, but our stories reflect us back at ourselves. And people who write stories like based on, they take what they've seen and what they've been exposed to, and then they move that into a new space. And so it's always being like shoved. And if you have, again, like an entire, and I'm fairly sure, I can't be 100% sure, but I'm fairly sure the entire like writing crew is all white, they are not seeing these things as clearly as like we can see them now that we've had much more work coming from a more diverse, creative core of people working in TV shows and books and all that kind of stuff. We're seeing that open up a lot more. So for us, we've been exposed to things that a lot of these people haven't been. And again, it's that terroir, right? I mean, our culture itself is racist. So if you're writing within the culture, you're bringing some of that, unless you are super conscious of it. And unless you have people on your staff who are conscious of it, it's usually only the people who are directly affected by it who are more conscious of it. Then you end up with this kind of thing happening. And I don't think that it's deliberate. I don't think that these people are bad people. I'm not going to say like they're all racist and terrible and blah, blah, blah and whatever. But it is something that I think is important to kind of like point out so that as we move through it, we're not allowing that stuff to kind of sit in the back of our head unchallenged.
So Mr. Trick, something that Mr. Trick really does for us in this episode, I think, is start to move us away from vampires as like quasi-religious kind of cultish followers of a master. I mean, he refers to Kakistos as the master. Of course, we had the master.
Right.
And he was, he was very much a cult leader. And I don't think we're going to see that. We're going to see vampires in a different light.
Yeah, and more interesting, more individual, more out for themselves, which I think is really good. And speaking of cultish loyalty, we here at Chipperish Media don't ask for cultish loyalty like Kakistos, but we do need your support in order to bring our shows to you free and ad-free. Shows like Still Dead about Angel the series, hosted by me and Dr. Kelly Jones. Listen Up A-Holes about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, hosted by me and superhero scholar Joshua Unruh. And our Star Wars podcast, Metaphors Be With You, hosted by Rob Hyrett. What makes Chipperish Media possible is the support of generous listeners like you, whose monthly donations make everything we do available for everyone. Patrons also get access to our Discord chat, where really smart people who love stories go above and beyond what we can viably discuss in our shows. And you get exclusive content like 2 Hosts Minimum, our upcoming patron exclusive podcast, where we mix and match Chipperish hosts to talk about patron requested movies, books, and TV shows. So thank you to everyone who supports Chipperish Media. Visit patreon.com/Chipperish to find out how you can help us keep slaying every week. All right, so we've talked about Buffy and Faith. We've talked about Joyce. We've talked about all sorts of stuff. Can we spend a little time talking about Willow?
Oh my God, yes.
Oh my God, I love Willow.
Willow.
I love her excitement about everything.
She is walking awkward in this episode, and I love it. It's delightful. Mm-hmm. And I'm with Oz when he says, I love it when you do that.
I know. You're supposed to stop me when I do that. And he's like, I like it when you do that. And it's so incredibly cute. I love her excitement about going off campus, and yet she can't because there might be rules. And then her enthusiasm for the magic. You know, she's like into the sage and she knows all this stuff. And then we're seeing the beginning of this, sort of mentor, but like worried mentor relationship with Giles, where he's like, these forces are not something one plays around with, Willow. What have you been doing? And she's like, nothing. It's fine.
It's the best father-daughter confrontation. It's possibly one of the best father-daughter interactions that we have. Although I understand that that's not the relationship that they have, but her little, are you mad at me? Like, I so see that, like, oh, crap, Dad is gonna bust me.
But, he would understand, though, because, like, he was Willow. When he was younger, he got around, he was messing with forces that he didn't understand, and that got him into a lot of trouble. And that, of course, was the demon that ended up taking over Jenny, and after everything that happened with Jenny, of course, he's still feeling all of that, So he's looking at Willow and is worried because he knows what's at the end of that path. Like, he knows where that takes you, and Willow doesn't. Willow just has the enthusiasm. So I love seeing all of her enthusiasm. I love all of that about her, but I also love Giles, like, being, he's giving her the side eye about it, but it's a protective thing. Like, he doesn't want to see her get hurt. He doesn't want to see her get into danger. At the same time, she's clearly a talented, magical force, and she can be really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And the way that she kind of sort of but not quite shows off for him with her knowledge of the the magical materials.
Yeah.
It's very cute. It's really it's really very much that, like, I'm asking you to tell me this is okay without really asking you to tell me this is okay.
Yeah, and she wants to connect with him on that because he knows magic, and he might know things, and like she's so into it, and I think she wants a teacher. I think she wants that, and he is so like, put on the brakes, like, what are you doing, and it's really nice to kind of see that, and it's so like lightly touched on. It's not a huge story moment. It's not a big narrative. We're not having a conflict between Giles and Willow, but you can see that kind of brewing, like the big brew in evil, right? You can see that kind of brewing underneath, and it's so wonderful. I love all of that.
And I love the little moment. It's so subtle, but when Faith is being flirtatious with Giles And Buffy says, raise your hand if you.
Yeah.
And Xander's hand goes up and Willow's doesn't. She just kind of looks over at Giles all sweetly. And we get that little hint of a kind of a crush.
She gets it.
It's so cute. I
know.
love it. And it's not pointed out. It just is there. And it's adorable. It's adorable. I love how nuanced the Willow-Giles relationship is.
It's so great. I really love it. And I love that moment, too, where she's like, you got to find the fun, B. Uffy. You know? Where she's picking up on the faith energy, you know, and they're all really energized by that.
Poor Willow trying so hard. And she's so invested. This is something we didn't talk about with Scott. Willow is really invested in the idea of Buffy dating Scott.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to make of that. I love all of the sweet, awkward Willow that we get, but it also feels a little bit, I don't know, just a little bit out of character for Willow that she would be pressing Buffy so hard to be dating. Or to be interested in this boy just because he was interested in her last year. Yeah. And I don't know.
I think that Willow wants Buffy to stop hurting over Angel. Like, I always read it that way, that she wants Buffy to stop feeling that pain. And so, you know, from her perspective, like, the best way to get over an old guy is get under a new one, you know, that can... You know, so to speak. I mean, it's high school, but still. Right. You know, that like, here's this guy and he's cute and, you know, maybe it could help you, you know, feel better and feel happy. And I think that that's generally what she wants. And also, I think that probably, you know, if you've got a boyfriend and your friend doesn't have a boyfriend, you kind of want to double date. And you kind of want to, like, you know, they have the whole uncoupling thing before they go to see Buffy. Like, perhaps we should uncouple.
Dear. You know. That is so sweet. Willow saying, oh, maybe we shouldn't be too coupley around Buffy. Yeah. I love that moment, but then to launch immediately into the, oh, there's Scott Hope, he likes you kind of, I don't know.
I think
it
was
little heavy-handed.
It is a little heavy-handed. I think it was what the writers wanted, and so they made Willow do it. You know, I mean,
I think that happens with Willow sometimes.
I think that happens. It happens with everybody sometimes. I mean, sometimes you've just got stuff you're putting into, and you need somebody to like have an enthusiasm for it or whatever.
We
you know,
just need someone to say this line. Goddamn
exactly,
it. Come on.
Exactly. Like they're nudging Willow and giving her some cue cards and being like, "Say this for us," because we can't step into the narrative and say it ourselves. So it's just you do it. So I mean, I do understand it a little bit from Willow's point of view. I think that she really just wants Buffy to not be so sad. You know, and that maybe having a new boyfriend will make her less sad. Although Scott Hope makes everybody sad, whether they're dating him or not, because he's terrible. So speaking of terrible, actually, okay, Xander's a little bit terrible. In this.
Xander.
We have this cute moment at the beginning, right, where he says, oh, you want a date? I saw that half smile, you little slut. And then Buffy hits him, like, lightly for Buffy. And he starts laughing. And he's like, ow. And I'm like, okay, that's good. Because we called him on it. You know, like, it's like, so it's funny and it's okay with Xander when he's gross, as long as he's getting called on it, you know? Then we have this whole thing with Faith, right? Where Faith is talking about how she, you know, ran out naked. And she's sitting up on the back of the chair. So her crotch is right at Xander's eye level. And when she says, I was naked, he looks at her crotch and it is disgusting. Like,
oh God,
it is disgusting. And then later on, he's like, oh, you know, were you naked when you were wrestling the vampire or whatever? And then Cordelia's like, Xander, find a new theme, you know? And I was glad Cordelia called him on it. But I'm not sure it's enough. When he looks at her crotch, it's disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't love the interaction in the beginning where he calls Buffy a slut.
Yeah.
I like that she whacks him. I like that it hurts. But then, of course, she doubles back and says, yes, okay, I do want to date. And I'm like, wait a minute. I don't know. I don't like it. And guys, let's not call people sluts unless they call themselves sluts, please. Like, I'm so sick of it. And then
No,
Cordelia,
if they call themselves sluts,
Yeah.
let them call themselves sluts. Don't call anybody else a slut, because a slut is a word that has been used to control women throughout the years, to shame women who are at all interested in having sex, you know, or enjoy sex, or even wear a tank top, right?
It's a word that doesn't mean anything. Like, it really doesn't. It just means it's just misogyny.
It's
unless
shaming
you take it
language.
on yourself and reclaim it. It's not.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And if somebody wants to reclaim it for themselves, they can do that. If somebody has, you know, if there's two girlfriends who have, you know, used this and they're reclaiming the word and they call each other slut, fine. You know, don't call women sluts, generally, unless you personally in your relationship have a context for it. And even then, maybe don't do it in front of other people, because it is a word, like so many words that we have in our language, that is used specifically, you know, to hurt people. And the people who are hurt by it get to decide how they want to use it, but nobody else can, you know? And so, I mean, that's one of the things, like, it's just one of those words that you just shouldn't use. And I mean, again, granted, at this time, we didn't have as much knowledge and understanding of that and whatever. I just like that he gets hit. I just like, if he's going to say it, at least he gets hit. At least we say that's not okay.
Yeah.
But you know, but again, like Xander, we have like, he's cute and he's funny and there's all these, but like, there's so many things that need to be called out. And so often they don't get called out. So at least they got called out in this episode. But the looking at her crotch though was, and the tell me the stories about the times that you were naked. I know he's a teenage boy, but I'm sorry, I don't believe that all teenage boys are incapable of having any sensitivity or any context. Like, that they're just so obsessed with sex that it's just okay because they're boys. Boys will be boys. It's not okay. And it's not good enough for Xander. Xander, and this is, I think, what really bothers me the most about Xander, is that I love Xander. That Xander is exactly the kind of guy that I love. I love he's funny, he's smart, he's sensitive. I mean, he's smart in ways that are not book smart, but whatever. But he's got all of these wonderful qualities that I really love in him. And so whenever he does this stuff, I need it to be called out. I need it to not be, you know, rubber stamped as okay. You know, because I love everything else about Xander and I have so much love for him, which may speak about me. Yeah.
Well, and I love that we have Cordelia to kind of offset some of Xander. You know, she says, you know, find a new theme. And then later in the high school, when they're all watching Faith, I don't know, what does she do? She's like at the drinking fountain and then she's talking to Scott. Yeah. And Cordelia says to Xander, what is it with you and Slayers? Like, she just calls, like, she's not gonna let this get in the way of. And
she doesn't get insecure about it, which is what I love about Cordelia. Yeah. She's not insecure about any of this. She's like, should I dress up as a Slayer and put a stake to your neck? You know,
loved that line.
Yeah,
I loved it. That was great. Yeah. That was a great. Now, and that is how you offset the grossness.
Yeah.
I mean, for my money, like, for me, that works. Yeah. Cordelia, you know, going along with Xander and kind of being
and allowing him to be attracted. Like, it's okay that you're attracted to somebody else. You're a human person.
Totally.
You know, how you act on it, you know, is a different thing. But like, she's saying, all right, if this is a thing that works for you, I'll bring it in. Let's go ahead and let's embrace this whole thing. You know, she's like, I know my value, you know, and you see that so rarely. Always, whenever anybody in a relationship is interested or sees anybody else as attractive, we instantly follow it up with this insecure, you know, you're betraying me kind of thing, whatever. And she's just like, no, I'm into it. Give me a steak.
Yeah. Or we get the toxic jealousy thing where jealousy is supposed to be a marker of like a good relationship because, you know, like if I want to pommel the person who looks at my person, that means I really love my person. What? No, no. Not good. Dress up as a Slayer. It's fine.
Dress up as a Slayer. That's how you handle it.
Yep.
All right. So for a couple of little things, we have the Giles stuff, right? Which Giles, where he is trying to get the details about what happened with Akathla from Buffy. And of course, the whole thing is he just wants her to talk about it. You know, it's not about a binding spell. It's not about any of that. He knows something's up. He knows something else happened, and he wants to get her to talk about it. So what did you think about that?
I have feelings about that.
Uh-huh.
Because demonstrably, it is important that Buffy talk about what really happened and what her experience was.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But I don't like Giles being sneaky in that way and getting information out of her like that. It feels emotionally manipulative.
Yes.
And I'm super uncomfortable with it.
It is emotionally manipulative, and it doesn't work. She comes to that on her own. She doesn't tell him that because of the spell. She tells him that because she's gotten to the point where she can process it. She tells him and Willow. And which, by the way, okay, let me just address this. Previously on Still Pretty, I had said that nobody talks about the fact that she killed Angel, that he had turned before she killed him until season 7 or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's not true. Clearly, they talk about it here. People were yelling at me. They're like, no, they talk about it like next week. And I'm like, all right, fine. So I did forget that. But the thing that they don't talk about is that Xander told Buffy to kick his ass. And that was the thing, too, that I was like, why have they not talked about that before? Then why did that not come out? So fine. Yes, I was wrong here. Clearly, Willow and Giles knows. And then, of course, like everybody else is going to know that Angel turned back and he had his soul by the time that she killed him. Right. Okay, so we're good. But back to Giles. He was, he was lying clearly, and he was trying to get Buffy to talk about it. And in the end, that's not what got her to talk about it. That's not what got it to work. So I'm kind of, on the one hand, I like the fact that he's tuned in. I like the fact that he knows, and he feels that she needs to talk about it. And he doesn't think that she'll talk about it if he outright asks her. What happened.
Yeah.
So I get that he's doing it to protect her, but I do agree with you. It is manipulative, and it's not really a fair thing to do, because when she is ready, clearly that's when she'll talk about it. And she does.
Yeah. Yeah. I love where he's coming from. I love the Giles who is so in tune with Buffy that he knows that there's something else that she needs to talk about, and that unburdening that will help her.
Yeah.
But the lie, the sort of subtle, I know something about you and I'm not going to tell you that I know, I'm just going to kind of dance around it. That, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Don't like it.
I don't like it either. I don't think it's very good. All right. So one more thing that we got in this episode very quickly. Snyder mentions the mayor, right?
Yes.
So we're going to be starting to set that up. We come in episode 3 is when things usually start to ramp up for whatever this season's big bad is going to be. And we don't see the mayor. We don't really interact with the mayor, but we do get a sense of the mayor. And we've been kind of seeding that since season 2. We've had Snyder mention the mayor a couple of times, So I like that we're kind of building into that. At this point, you look at it and you say, well, Kakistos is going to be our big bad. No, he dies. Yeah. Trick is going to be our big bad, and he is worthy of it. So at this point, you're thinking, ooh, Trick's going to be the guy, which could be really, really cool. But we've got the mayor kind of brewing, the big brewing evil in the background, which I think is going to be really, really fun. And when he mentions the mayor, and I'm like, oh my God, because so much great stuff happens in season 3.
Yes.
That I'm like, oh my God, it's Faith, and Faith is here, and there's all this stuff going on. Oh, Trick is here, and all this. And then it's like, oh, the mayor. The mayor is such a great, great villain and antagonist for the season. I absolutely love it, and I'm so excited to see him kind of, step onto the stage here.
I love the slow burn introduction of any character. I love it. I'm so excited to get to talk about the mayor.
I know it's going to be so much fun, but we can't talk about it just yet. But we can talk about is, I don't know, Noelle, what are you wearing?
Oh, my goodness. Well, we covered some of the clothing, the costuming already.
Yeah.
We have that reprise of Buffy spotting a vampire based on his clothing style. Yeah. Although I would be more inclined to say that it's his style of dance and not his style of dress that calls him out. But
there is that, yes.
Whatever. But I love everything about the visual contrast between Buffy and Faith. I mean, soft and hard, light and dark. And they just look so good together. And I do mean
They do.
together, because I ship that so hard.
Oh, there is some great sexual tension between Buffy and Faith. Absolutely.
And it's just, I mean, sparks are flying.
Nice.
It's wonderful.
Sparks are flying.
Also, I had a pair of those round toe chunky heel boots that Faith wears, and now I really wish I still had them.
Well, we clearly need to go and find you a pair.
Clearly. I mean,
and then
I
you
will
can
be...
do Faith cosplay. If we ever get a ChipperCon put together, we'll have to have you do that.
Yeah, we'll just, yeah.
Dye your hair black and give you some really sharp makeup, and it'll be awesome.
Yeah. Anyway,
yes.
But yes.
Yeah.
Angel's dreamy white shirt, of course. So we get that lovely, like, blood spreading from the inside out, which is just so evocative, so well done.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
No, it's really nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we color coordinated our couples in this too. Like Oz has the same, in the beginning, Willow's pants are the same color as Oz's shirt. And then we have Scott Hope, always wearing these like pastel colors that sort of reflect Buffy,
They
yeah.
do. Yeah, they do tend to costume couples together.
A little bit.
Is,
we have a little bit of harmony there in the color coding. So yeah,
little
that's kind
bit.
of fun. That's
Little
kind of
bit.
fun. All right. So for ARG the patriarchy, I think sluts. Don't call people sluts.
Stop calling people sluts,
Let's
guys.
just not do that. And also, guys, when a woman is talking, don't look at her crotch. I mean, it's one thing. Like, don't look at her boobs either. Look at her face. Look at her eyes. Don't look at her crotch.
I don't know. I mean, hey, come on, guys. My vagina's down here. Like, really. Seriously. Stop looking at my boobs. My vagina's down here. All right.
My vagina's down here.
I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, I mean, stop calling people sluts. I really don't like that Cordelia refers to Faith as Slutorama.
Yeah.
I mean, before we know who she is. I'm just like, no. Anytime a girl calls another girl a slut, I'm like, It pulls me right out.
Internalized, learned misogyny.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah. Don't like it. And of course, and of course the systems of, white supremacy, that's that patriarchy and white supremacy are real good buddies. And we address
skip
it here.
down the lane hand in hand. Yeah, they do. They really do.
We address it
so
here, but don't
stuff.
address it. So it's, it's all that stuff.
Yeah. It's our culture reflected back at us, guys. We got to face it. It's pretty terrible.
Come on, guys. We
got
to fix this. We got to work on some stuff.
We are fixing it. It is getting better. It's not where it should be yet, but it is getting a lot better. When I come from, like stuff from the mid-90s and I move into stuff that's more modern, I'm seeing a huge difference. A lot of that stuff is being weeded out, and that's really, really good. And that goes with diversity in your storytellers. That's the only way to combat that appropriately and effectively. So we're seeing that a lot more, and it's really, really good. But again, we are critiquing the culture. We're not calling the writers bad people. It's a reflection of the culture. It's what was happening back then. So we're just calling it out. But one of the great things, we got a girl power moment of the week. What's your girl power moment of the week?
My girl power moment of the week is Buffy coaching Faith through her terror. When Kakistos comes through the motel room door and Buffy's just like, Faith just crumbles because she's so traumatized, and Buffy gets her out of there. And then, once they've got a little bit of space, reassures her you did the right thing by running. It's really, really good.
Processing both of them processing their trauma is kick ass. It really is. That's a difficult thing to do, but it's really nicely done.
And that great little coda after they've dusted Kakistos. You hungry?
No.
Yeah.
It is. It's so cute. I love that. All right. So what's your favorite part?
Well, that actually ties really nicely into my favorite part, which is Faith and food.
Yeah.
There is a fantastic thing that happens with Faith and food. And of course, we hear from her that, slaying makes you hungry and horny.
Right.
But one of the moments that I love so much is Faith at dinner with Joyce and Buffy. And Faith has this like nice balanced variety of colorful foods on her plate, and she's just so happy to be eating, which I love.
This poor kid.
I mean, and meanwhile, Buffy has fries. Nothing else, just fries that she doesn't touch. And I think that this is really fascinating. I mean, I could go on for hours about the depictions of food and eating in Buffy.
Yeah.
But the contrast between slayers in that scene is especially meaningful because Buffy is denying herself the nourishment of connection while Faith is ravenous. Faith is scooping up connection left and right. Buffy worries that Faith is trying to replace her, but Faith has no one. And she's trying to connect with all of these people. And we see this with her varied plate of food, which she's just gobbling. And the perfect ending to this scene of Faith just like feeling so at home, but also on edge in this domestic scene.
She has to grab as much of it as she can while it's there.
Yeah.
Like the way that she's going after the food, when Buffy takes a look back at her, and she's just digging into everything.
I love it.
And it's like, because she doesn't know when she's going to have another nice meal.
Yep. We see her.
It's insecurity. Yeah.
We see her alone at the table and she's picking all the good bits out of the serving bowls with her hands and just cramming it all in as fast as she can because she doesn't know. Not only does she not know where her next meal is coming from, but also her next opportunity for that kind of nourishing human connection.
Yeah.
It's this really, really great metaphor.
Yeah.
I think that we'll see, and I imagine we're going to see more of that with Faith's whole way of being.
Yeah.
Cram it all in as fast as possible because
grab what you can while you can.
It might be going away. It's fantastic. Yeah. I love it. I love Faith and food so much.
Yeah. No, it's really, really good.
What's your favorite part?
For me, I think it's when Buffy tells Giles and Willow what happened. Her processing of this trauma, working through it on her own. She's not responding to Giles's, manipulations. She's doing it on her own time. And when she tells them, she just lets it. And then she says, I've been holding that in, and it feels good to let it go. And I thought that was really great. And I like that. And I also like, when she goes at the end of the episode, it's the sandwich, with this horrible Scott Hope thing, where she goes and she decides to go out with him. And then she's like, there's just one more thing I have to do and then I'll be free. Right. And so she goes to the mansion and she puts her clutter ring on the floor and she says goodbye. And then right in that spot, some hours later, right, Angel suddenly appears. And I love that. I absolutely love it. So I think that that's really great. I love her taking control of her trauma, processing it in the way that she needs to in her own time, sharing it with her friends, and then using that symbol. Ritual and symbol are a thing for a reason, and when you can use the symbols in your life to do something that helps you release these things, it can be really, really powerful. And so I love the way that she did that. And second favorite to that is just everything Trick. Well, our prayers are with him. Yeah.
Hopes and prayers.
Hopes and prayers, baby.
That's it for today. To join in the discussion on Twitter, follow Lani at LaniDianeRich and me at Noelle Aloud and use the hashtag StillPretty. You can also visit the Chipperish forums. Go to chipperish.com, click on forum, and join in the fun.
Or you can keep Chipperish Media going to the tune of $1 a month or more and gain access to the live chat and Discord where you can hang out with me and Noelle and all the Chipperish patrons who are never bored here in the home of the big brew and evil. Visit patreon.com/Chipperish to find out more.
You can also show your support by giving Still Pretty a great review on Apple Podcasts, or by telling your friends about the show, or by finding the fun bee. Fee.
We'll be back next time with Beauty and the Beast, the 4th episode of Season 3. Until then, if we don't do something, the Master could get killed. Well, our prayers are with him.